Last time on Fourth Wing, Violet talked with her supposed childhood best friend and got mad when he agreed with her that she shouldn't be a dragon rider. Next we saw some dragons and they were really big and scary. We learned a bunch of utterly terrible world building about their best general at battle class. Violet went to fighting class, one of the only 2 classes that she attends, and got her arm broken because she was stubborn? Stupid? It's unclear. And finally, homicidal Jack offed someone and the teacher barely batted an eye.
And we are back for another chapter of this. I had a thought while I was at work, one of those Julian starts out a chapter with a thought, an option, if you will, that I would suggest to this author had she hired me as her developmental editor. I might be like, hey, your main character is fine as she is. She's not really hurting anyone or anything. She's not ruining your book. But, idea here, what if we made her the driving force of her own story? Because right now she's being carried along by other people's wishes, other people's desires, her mother for some reason wanting her to be a dragon rider. So let's change one thing. Let's say that she has always wanted to be a dragon rider, but she's smaller, she's weaker, she has her disability, and so she watched her brother and sister become dragon riders, her mother's a dragon rider, and she was forced to go into the scribe quadrant. But unbeknownst to her mother, she's still secretly training. She still secretly hopes to become a dragon rider. And when the time comes for the evaluations to become dragon riders, she signs herself up anyway. Maybe her mother's furious about this, but nothing can be done. Now she's signed up. Now, of course, once she gets to the dragon riding school, she can still find all of these bullies, all of this hatred against her. She can find that becoming a dragon rider is harder than she ever imagined it would be, and she's going to need all her wits and skills, and yes, the knowledge that she learned while she was learning to be a scribe as well, because her mother wanted her to be a scribe. All of that can still be used, but instead of the main character being passive and forced into everything, she could be the reason that she is here. She could be the driving force behind her own life, and that could give her wants, needs, desires, because right now, she doesn't really have those. Like, if you ask me at this moment where I am in my reading, what does the main character want or even need? I don't know. She needs to survive dragon school. But what does she want? Hot boys. What does she want? But if you made it so that she wanted to become a dragon rider, that's so simple and so clear. And if I was developmentally editing this book, I would definitely recommend a change like that to the author. But anyway, let's go with chapter 6. I'm playing my old game of beat the memory card, so okay, it's not a very long chapter. Cool. Today I have iced tea. The quote says, "It is my opinion that of all the signet powers writers provide, mending is the most precious. But we cannot allow ourselves to become complacent when in the company of such a signet. For menders are rare, and the wounded are not." From Major Frederick's Modern Guide for Healers. As you recall, the main character made silly choices and broke something. So chapter 6, we are going to see if injuries matter, and also we're going to find out about healing in this world, which is an important thing to find out about. Like, what are the rules of the healing magic? How much can people heal? What can they do? Because that'll tell us going forward how much we should be worried about injuries. Like, are they super easy to cure? Of course, that does bring up the question of, like, how much can they cure? Like, could they cure her disability? I don't know. Let's see what we find out. She gets to be carried in Dane's manly arms versus, does anybody else who gets injured, do they get to be heroically princess carried? I doubt it. Everybody else is probably told to walk it off and rub some dirt on it. She's mad because Dane sweeping her off to the healer in his own arms does kind of imply that maybe they like each other. The healer's name is Winifred. That is the most healery name, like, that you could ever come up with. Somebody said name a healer, I would be like Winifred. She is familiar with Winifred. She's been to Winifred many times before, so they're besties. Oh, healers do not have magic, relying on traditional tinctures and medical training to heal as best they can, but menders do. Okay, so we're being specific. People with healing magic are called menders. And the area mender, his name is Nolan. We do have healers being rare. I kind of did that in Adventurer Mage too, probably for different reasons within the story, but if you have magical healers, you don't want to overpopulate them in your story because then everything gets a little bit too easy for your characters. Okay, so the rule seems to be that they can fix what was broken. So they can return something to its original state. So her original state is somebody who has this disability, so that's why he can't cure it. Does make me wonder, like if somebody gets their leg chopped off, can he cure that? Can he grow a leg back? It was the original state is a person with a leg.
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
For some reason, Dane doesn't want them to call the mender, even though he's the mender is familiar with our main character. She has been mended by him many times before, so I don't know what's going on here. Here's another example of where you don't need extra, I guess you could say. Winifred asks what happens, and the main character answers, "Sparring, I explain in one word." Yes, you don't need to say, "I explain in one word," because that is the exact thing that you have just done with the dialogue. So you could do something else, like "I said," for example. I don't know why they're worried that people will see that she's injured, because like I'm certain that sparring injuries happen all the time, do they not? Or are literally all of the other dragon riders expected to walk it off? There are other dragon riders here in this infirmary. She said it was like half full. So like, this shouldn't be weird that another one is in here. Even if she is the daughter of the general, like who cares? Dragon riders get injured, they go to the healer. I don't know why we're being so secretive about this. Okay, this is all part of Dane's plan to get her to go back to the scribes. Which again, if her goal was to be a dragon rider, then this would be a great point of conflict for her and Dane, because right now we don't really completely understand why she's like, no, I have to stay here and be a dragon rider. But if she wanted it, then she could be like, I don't care about this injury, I want this is my dream, stop stifling me, man. And even though Dane is like, no, obviously you're very breakable, please go back to being a scribe. But yeah, he's like, can we like leave her injured so that the scribes will take her back? We are reminded again by Nolan in a chunk of dialogue, which feels very much like as you know kind of dialogue, about the traitors and the great betrayer and their children being punished and being forced to be dragon riders now. It's just their military system seems so deeply flawed, because they'll take on people who would actively want to sabotage their military, and everybody is allowed to kill everybody. So even someone who would have been an amazing dragon rider or great leader or useful healer could just be killed off one day because a student got a lucky shot. Dane is still trying to get her out, and she's like, no, I'm staying. We don't really get any thoughts from her about why. She's just like, no, I'm staying here. And she mentions that like if the other students see her needing mending all the time, they'll think she's weak. But like, okay, then what was your plan here? You let that other girl break your arm. You didn't stop her, you didn't call the match, you didn't like, yeah, they would have thought you weak for surrendering, but did the alternative actually get you anything? Is anybody gonna be impressed that you sat there and let her break your arm and then had to go to had to be carried to the healer by a tall, strapping young man? Maybe they'll be jealous, I don't know. I just don't feel like this was a better option. Okay, her motivation for not leaving the riders is just because she can't. Her mother will come get her and throw her back in. But like I said, imagine if it was her choice. Imagine if the reason that she wouldn't leave is because she wanted this. I don't know why we have so many characters not wanting things in a lot of these books. It's something I've noticed. And a lot of the YA books that I have been reading for these read-alongs is that so many of our lead characters are characterized by not wanting. They don't want to be part of this. They don't want to be involved in this, and then they're carried along by fate or someone else's plans and, you know, forced to do it, and maybe they find a way to do it their way or whatever. And maybe that does speak to the teenage experience. Maybe teenagers really are feeling like, you know, oh, I am forced to do everything. I don't have a choice, and so I will just come out better because of it. But while that maybe is a slightly more realistic and relatable thing for teenagers, I also think that there's something to be said for having teenage characters, and she's not a teenager. Like, this book is being read by teenagers for certain, but she's not technically a teenager, so she can have sex. Still think it would be stronger overall for many of these stories if the lead characters wanted something and strove to achieve it. Because then that tells teenagers that they can want something and they can strive to achieve it, and they don't just have to sail along, hopefully succeeding at whatever task the universe or their parents set them to. Part of reading a book is escapism and wish fulfillment, and like, why is our greatest wish to be tasked with something by someone else and then struggle our way through it until we eventually succeed at the other side? Like, I don't get it. I think that a lot of these stories would be better if main characters wanted things. They can still maybe be tasked to things that they don't want by their parents or the universe or whatever, but like, also give them some driving force. Okay, you don't need to tell us that this isn't her first mending when you've been telling us this entire chapter that she's been mended many times before, and she's familiar with both of these medical professionals. They've seen her so many times before, they were all friends. But the author keeps being like, also, did I mention, in case you forgot, we've been here lots of times. Okay, so more details about the healing. When they mend you, your limb or whatever they mended will be sore for a while afterwards, so her arm is still in a sling. Still don't know if they can mend things like your arm or leg being chopped off, or like how close to death do you have to get before they can't mend you anymore. Just rules to think about when you're creating healing magic rules. I thought about creating healing magic in my book Adventurer Mage. Just things to ponder. So you know, even if your reader never necessarily finds those things out, you should know. Rhiannon is of course here, happy to see her best friend, because, you know, Rhiannon doesn't have a whole lot else going on. And she's wearing sleeping shorts and a top, so we cannot escape. This is giving me Light Lark flashbacks. We cannot escape just sort of modern pajamas for our fantasy story. I get it. It's a fantasy book. It's not beholden to any time period, but we've kind of all universally agreed that with swords and sorcery comes a certain amount of old-fashioned garb, and these books just don't, like, the author couldn't be arsed to find out maybe what people might have worn to bed in ye olden times. And I bet she's wearing a tank top. The author just didn't want to go that far. I'm sorry, but Rhiannon is starting to give off major Delphi vibes from the Savior's Sister, just like the black friend who's really all she has going on in her life is the white main character. You're the only friend I have here, so I'd rather you didn't die when this gets real, promising to help our main character learn how to fight better. So when she finally gets back to her bunk, she finds a present from her sister under her pillow, and it is her dead brother's like guidebook, essentially, that he wrote for the sister, for Mira. And now Mira has passed it on to our main character, because I guess our main character needs more advantages, besides just being really, really good at history and having siblings, you know, just in general, and a mother who are all dragon riders. She needs even more help. Her brother starts helping her immediately with his notes. The page that she randomly opens to is one about sparring and how eventually she's gonna have to do like real sparring in a competition, but he lets her know that she can sneakily find out who she's going to be sparring against if she, you know, plays her cards right, and so she can start to like plan her fight well before it happens. And it's like, again, I really wish that this was something that came from the character instead of just being handed this MacGuffin that tells her what to do next. I want her laying there thinking, okay, I lost today, this can't happen again, eventually I'm gonna have to fight in a real competition. What can I do? And maybe the idea starts to form. What if I found out? what if I could find out who my opponent would be? How would I go about doing that? And she starts to plan and percolate that on her own. There's so much book, so much time for her to be clever and thoughtful instead of just being handed the answer. Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. She just finds out from her brother that there's a way potentially for her to find out who her opponent will be, and so she's like, and that starts the gears turning. So she will still have to figure this out, presumably, but at the same time, the idea didn't come from her. But I'm gonna stop here. I just wanted to, knock out a chapter really quick. Today, I've got lots of other stuff to do, as per usual, so I will see all of you again for the next chapter. Hello and welcome back. For more Fourth Wing, I have M&Ms. And if you hear my dryer going in the next room, well, as per usual, just embrace my house noises as though we are in the home together. And I am reading this and commentating on it directly to you. Imagine you were seated before me on the floor like a bunch of kids at story time. Angry story time. So I mentioned on Goodreads how sad it made me that we seem to be having this trend of female lead characters just being thrown into situations and just having to, having no power over their own lives, and like thinking about like how is that our fantasy? Is that our fantasy as women, that like the things that happen to us in real life, essentially, that very often we are thrown into things by people and we don't have power over our own lives? Is that what we want? But then somebody pointed out that I may have actually gotten the wrong fantasy. I may be mixed up. Somebody pointed out that it might be what I would call the no effort fantasy. That is the fantasy that we, women or whoever, through no effort of our own, we'll find ourselves the hero. We'll find ourselves the desired one by the hot boy, which I'm sure is going to be happening very soon. Which all comes back around to what I was talking about with sort of the innate superiority, the inborn superiority that we like in our characters. I say we, but I don't. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite tropes. But many people like in our characters. So even though it seems negative that this character is being thrown into this situation by her mother, ultimately it is going to be a positive for her life, and she's definitely going to be the hero and save the day because she's the main character of this book. So ultimately, yes, this very well might be a form of the no effort trope, where things just happen to the character to put her in exactly the position where she gets to be the most special. Alright, we're chapter 7, only chapter 7. I'm probably going to get most of the way, if not all of the way through this book before I start putting out read-alongs, because those take a long time to edit, and if I'm trying to find time to read and edit at the same time, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Also, has anyone noticed that I've been going through my collection of shirts relating to dragons? I'm pretty much through them now, so you can go back and watch the beginning and see if you can clock some dragon-related shirts. Alright, there's 2 quotes this time, beginning chapter 7. In the best interest of preserving peace within Navarre, no more than 3 cadets carrying rebellion relics may be assigned to any squad of any quadrant. From the War College of Conduct. In addition to last year's changes, the marked ones assembling in groups of 3 or more will now be considered an act of seditious conspiracy and hereby a capital offense. So we're really trying to lean into this whole, like, there's an underclass, there are these rebels that we kept around for some reason and subjugated and made do things for us which they hate and they hate us for. It just seems like a terrible idea. Why did we do it? Why did we do it? It just makes me think of The Woman King, which is a really cool movie.
You are called to join the King's Guard. No kingdom in all of Africa shares this privilege.
I recommend that movie. But in it, the good guys attack some other people and take some of their women hostage. And those women have the opportunity to join the military. They do so because that is a much better life than the one they were previously living. It is a huge step up from how they were being treated back in their villages or whatever. So I could see that if these rebel children were offered a chance to be better treated, to have better lives, to have more chances at success, then this whole let's incorporate the rebel children into our society would make sense. But they don't. They're treated as an underclass, and they're given these giant tattoos that cover most of their bodies so that we can tell that they are an underclass, and we treat them like shit and don't let them meet in groups larger than 3. Where's the logic? We are never going to interrogate how stupid this system is, are we?
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
Okay, character just has a new skill that just unlocked that we previously didn't know she had. Definitely her having been going to the scribe school is going to be basically our version of the training that the main character had in Lightlark, where if the character just needs to know anything or be good at anything, she'll just be able to be like, yeah, I researched it back when I was learning to be a scribe. And that's also probably why we never actually got to see her at scribe school, because that didn't matter. All it exists for is an excuse for her to know things. So now she's down by a river, picking out berries for poisons, because she's just, apparently, for the past 9 days that we didn't get to see, she's been sneaking out and getting poisons ready for whatever challenge she's going to face that her brother's book handily set her up to know that she's going to face. We also get reminded that she has been doing fighting practice with Rhiannon, lest we forget that she'll also have like some of that to fall back on later when she's kicking ass. We can be like, oh, well, off page, she was training with Rhiannon this whole time. Not that we need to see every training session she has with Rhiannon, it's just whenever we have a passage of time where a character did a bunch of things to advance the plot, I get a little bit salty. She's climbing a tree to get these poison berries off of a vine that only grows on this tree for some reason. And she's in a cloak because she had to be sneaky. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're sneaking out wearing the cloak. Cool. But she's still wearing it climbing the tree. And I think the usefulness of the cloak is pretty much over with once you're in the tree. So I would have left it at the base of the tree because now it's just a hindrance. If somebody comes along and sees a cloak vaguely whipping around in the tree, they're not going to be like, oh, I don't see anything, unless it's a magic cloak that like hides you. My heart stutters for a heartbeat. I think you could probably say my heart stutters for a beat. Ooh, good news, my girlfriend is here. So excited, she's my favorite character. As our hero is climbing back down, she spots 2 more people wearing cloaks. She spots them immediately, so I don't know exactly how this cloak was actually supposed to hide anyone. But they stop at the bottom of her tree, and one of them swooshes back her hood to reveal her pink hair. Ah, Imogen is here with Zaden, so our main character's pretty sure that she's in big trouble now. She can't help but throw in a jibe about Imogen and like, is that the kind of girl that he likes? Oh, more people show up, so it's not a clandestine sexy times. It's just a bunch of people with relics. That's what they call the tattoos, the marks that show that they are children of rebels. And as we read at the excerpt at the beginning of this chapter, and then the main character reiterates for us, they're not allowed to gather in groups larger than 3. Because that certainly won't make them even more rebellious at all. She decides that she can't risk that they're plotting to overthrow the Empire, which is such a great empire. So she's got to sneak closer so she can hear what they're saying. Awfully convenient that they decided to have this meeting under the exact tree by the exact river that she happens to be in and near.
You're kidding, what a crazy random happenstance.
Now something like this, a coincidence like this, would not be as noticeable if everything else wasn't already being handed to her. If everything in her life wasn't something that comes from someone else, I wouldn't notice this little blip, this little convenient moment where she just happens to overhear something. But in the last chapter, she just happened to get a book from her brother that totally set her on the right path to solving future problems. So I'm very primed to notice when another convenient thing happens to her in the next chapter. Then Zaden says something that just seems pretty straightforward. Basically, he just says, hey, we have to work together because nobody likes us. And the main character finds that, like, charming for some reason. And she is like, damn it, why do I find him admirable? And I'm like, I don't know. I went back and reread what he just said in case I missed something. And all it is like, We have to work together because no one trusts us. Oh, such an admirable thing that no one else could have possibly said. They're all trying to figure out, like, you know, they're just being allies. They're like, hey, who here is failing their, like, hand-to-hand classes? A couple people raise their hands. And then Garrick says he'll teach them. And I'm like, excuse me, what about Imogen? Imogen is kicking ass in her fighting classes. Why doesn't she teach them? Then everybody falls into a praise session about how actually it's Zaden who's the best fighter, and like he's just so cool, you guys. He's the coolest one. Trust us. Oh, they finally mention Imogen. Like, she's almost as good as Garrick, and nobody is as cool or good of a fighter as Zaden.
Commander, I just caught Garrick snooping around the access corridor outside the main phaser banks.
Apparently Zaden has a cousin there, and his name is Bodhi.
So even when I was reading the book, this name made me stop and go, what? And then afterward, I had someone inform me that everybody has Irish names, and I was like, okay, and I took their word for it. But Bodhi stood out. When I was editing here, I was like, oh, it stood out to me then, and it stands out to me now, because it is not an Irish name. Why does this one guy have a Sanskrit name when he is Zaden's cousin? What are we doing? I don't understand. He also supposedly looks a lot like Zaden. I am just, okay.
Zaden has to give a tough guy pep talk about how in war people die, and if you're not strong, you don't make it out of here.
War never changes.
We have to keep harping on the fact that Imogen has pink hair. Every time her hair is mentioned, it's gonna be pink. Pink hair. Her hair is pink. We get a little hint that maybe there's like more to the story than what they're being told, and the rebel kids know it. She's just about to be like, oh, well, this is just a group of kids gathering to talk about classes and their shortcomings and help tutor each other. And then somebody's like, but when do we get to kill Violet Sorengale? So obviously, even though this is a group of people who shouldn't really give a fuck, their conversation has to come back around to the main character. Zaden is like, I'll handle her, and of course our main character is incensed. He'll handle me like I'm some kind of task, like I'm some kind of chore. Like, ma'am, he's talking about murdering you. There are a couple of people defending our main character as well. We've got everything. They're so obsessed with her, they just can't not talk about her. Some people being like, we want to kill her for revenge. Some people being like, well, she's stuck in this death school just like us. I mean, do they know that she didn't volunteer to be here? So she waits for them to leave, and then she climbs down from the tree. Apparently she didn't wait long enough, though, or didn't pay enough attention, because Zaden is there, and he ambushes her. Oh my god, he's such a cliche. He's such a cliche. Guess what his special power is? Commanding the shadows. If he got any broodier, he would disappear up his own butthole.
You play the ghost of a dream of a memory of a cyborg warrior trying to find his dead wife inside a poem.
What the fuck does that feel like? His voice was like rough velvet against my skin. Rough velvet. But velvet is pretty much universally used when you mean something soft. So what is rough velvet? And of course, now they're having a snarky interaction where he's very blasé and she's getting more and more pissed off. It's like the author of this book just read notes from every other author who's written one of these hate-to-love romantasy books and just did the exact same thing. And it just makes me ask again, romantasy readers, don't you get bored? I mean, I know we like the same things over and over again. It's human nature. We like the same comforting things over and over again. But don't you sometimes wish that we could have a little variety? Apparently, he can command shadows to be, like, tangible because he uses them to pull some daggers out of the tree. She threw some daggers at the tree, whatever. It was just a show. It was violence flirting is what we have going on here. You've seen it a million times. And he uses the shadows to pull the daggers out of the tree and into his hands. I love how we have to have this dynamic that we see so many million times, where the girl and the guy are violence flirting, and she's like, oh, he could totally take me, but ooh, I've got some tricks up my sleeve. Here's some thrown daggers. Oh, and then the guy is impressed. But then the guy always has to be like, but actually I'm much more powerful than you. And the girl has to realize every time that the guy could actually beat her easily. And I am just so over the archetype of the man must always be the more powerful with magic, with martial skills, with anything. The girl can have a moment where it looks like maybe she's doing okay, but in the end, for these guys to be sexy apparently, she cannot be able to beat him. She has to realize, I can't beat him. And I think it ties into like this desire that a lot of readers have of being with a guy who could kill you but chooses not to. And I just don't find that super sexy. I mean, yes, technically, my spouse could kill me, but like, I don't go around thinking all day like, oh, he's seconds away from snapping my neck, but he's resisting it. I could never fight back against him. He's so kind and good not to kill me using his superior strength. It's just not attractive to me, and you just see it every time. Beat for beat. Now, our main character should be dead here, and if it was anyone else, she would be, but she happens to have been caught by the guy who already, I'm certain, wants to jump her bones, and just thinks that she's the hottest, most special girl in the world. He's just hiding it really well because he has to be broody. It's his brand. So of course he's like handing her back her daggers, and he's like, you're not going to tell anyone about our little meeting, are you? And she's like, no, of course not. And it's just going to be all good. Even though if he killed her right here, right now, it would be perfectly legal and sanctioned. No one would find out about their meeting. No one would bat an eye except Dane, who would be a sad boy. But nobody would bat an eye that she's dead. Yeah, then he just leaves, and she's like, cool. I will not question this. And that's the end of the chapter. And just once again, that kind of no effort fantasy where she doesn't have to get herself out of that situation. He likes her. So he'll pretend like, oh, I'm totally gonna kill you later. Just not right now, because it wouldn't be fun right now. And then she's like, cool, I 100% believe that, have a good night. After the most cliched flirt fighting interaction that you could possibly have, in which she has to realize that he could overpower her in a blink, and she just has to be grateful, I guess, that he doesn't. Except she's not, because she's leaving here feeling all clever, like a clever pants, and she did nothing. She did nothing. All right, I am gonna go walk the dog and make myself some dinner. I might film again tonight, but probably tomorrow. You don't care, because you'll just get the next chapter when you get the next chapter. I'll see ya.
This episode of Terrible Dragon Book is brought to you by me. I don't have any sponsors. I literally am a small business. So anyway, have you written a book, and are you worried that maybe you're making it a little bit too easy for your main character, but it's really hard to tell when you've written the book? You're too close to it. To you it seems right, or maybe everything seems wrong, and you really need someone to tell you if it's working. Well, that might be a job for a developmental editor, and hey, look at that, I happen to be one of those. And you can hire me right now on Fiverr. So if you need someone to look over your book and tell you if it's working or not working, and if it's not working, to offer you actionable suggestions for how to fix it, I might be the editor for you. I now offer 2 different kinds of developmental editing, so you can figure out which one works best for you. And your first 5K words are only $25 if you want to see if we're going to be a good fit. So that's pretty exciting. Also, if you don't have a book that you need edited and you just want to support the channel, you can support me on Patreon or through Ko-fi, whatever it is, where you can make a one-time donation. Thank you so much, and now back to your regularly scheduled dragon program.
Alright, we're back. New day. I'm gonna try to film some more chapters today. Just try to plow through this thing as quickly as I can with my limited time. You know, when I heard that there was a dragon book that was taking everyone by storm, I thought that it would at least be entertaining, but I am so bored. I'm thinking about picking up this book again. I don't want to because I'm bored. Nothing new or original is happening. And yes, like I've talked about, we love our tropes, we love our patterns, we love familiar things. But I do like to mix in some unexpected things. Just every now and then. Just throw that in. And is it just the promise of dragons that's keeping us going? Because I want to see some It's chapter 8, and we have seen just a couple of dragons standing on a wall looking menacing. Like, I mean, it is only chapter 8, and this book is enormous, so we will eventually get to her having a dragon, I'm sure. But from what little scuttlebutt I have heard, because it's unavoidable, the dragon parts are like the least important parts of this entire dragon book. All that it really has for fantasy is some pretty shallow magic and some weird names. You know, the thing that I would personally have cut out if I was, making this accessible fantasy is the weird fantasy place names. Like, make them easier to say. Make them really simple and plain. You know what I called one of my kingdoms in one of my books? Ged. G-E-D. Doesn't need 3 syllables. It can have 3 letters. All right, let's go back into this boring book. Nigel is here. Anyway, there is an art to poison not often discussed, and that is timing. Only a master can properly dose and administer for effective onset. What do you want to bet that our main character is a master? Because if you remember, she was going to scribe school. We didn't see any of it, but we know it. One must take into account the mass of the individual as well as the method of delivery. How about the weight of the individual? The mass is a really weird way to say that. Rhiannon is not currently here to help our main character get dressed in the morning because she has to wear a special corset thing, so we can picture her very slim and sexy. Because Rhiannon is off having sex, apparently, is what our character thinks she's doing. So at least she has a leg up on frickin' Layla, because Layla would go storming over to her friend and demand that she pay attention to her and stop having sex. Also, they have the same months as us. It's August. Just August. Tell us you don't care about your fantasy world without telling us you don't care about your fantasy world. Unless we're supposed to understand that this is Earth in the distant past or the far future, why do they have August? I was correct, Rhiannon is a lesbian or bisexual because they find her and she was coming back from her dalliance with a girl named Tara. Or Tara, not sure which. Hey, wasn't that the name of Willow's girlfriend?
You should ride with me sometime. I guarantee safety and fun.
This author and her dialogue tags just, sometimes you don't gotta. You've got Dane lectures, Rhiannon counters, Dane mutters. It just back to back. It says she's had a thing for Tara, or Tara, I'm gonna say Tara. I'll probably change it every time I read a new chapter. It says that Rhiannon has had a thing for Tara since we got here. Best I can recall of this thing for Tara is that Rhiannon was looking at several girls during fighting practice. Some evidence of this would have, fleshed out Rhiannon as a person instead of just the best friend archetype who's there to be, and I hate to say it, I really hate saying it because it gives ammunition to all of those people who, if you ever have a queer character in your book, they just claim that you're doing a checklist. But she feels like a token gay. She does. And that's because she hasn't been given a personality. It's so easy. It's so easy not to fuck that up. But she's doing everything. She's gay, she's black, and she's the character's, immediately loyal best friend. And I'm like, it's so easy not to do that. I hate it because anytime I say, this is a token gay character, this is a token black character, it gives ammunition to those people who, anytime you have queer characters in your book, will accuse you of filling out a checklist.
Or the flip side, those people who encounter a character who's more tokeny in one book and say that we should never ever try to write characters of color or queer characters anymore because they're all just tokens. There's a middle ground that's not actually that hard to get to. Why are we struggling so much?
The really easy litmus test, though, do they have a personality? Aside from gay. I would really love it if it turns out, and it's not gonna, but I would love it if it turns out that Rhiannon was actually up to something besides sex with Tara. Maybe she's got her own schemes going on. She's got her own plans. She plans to win. Wouldn't that be amazing? If she was maybe she was having sex with Tara too. You could do both. But also, she was making her own way through this dangerous dragon school without the main character. Because not everything a side character does needs to or should pertain to the main character. That's one of the pieces of advice I give people writing side characters, is give them like a hobby, an activity, a goal that has nothing to do with the main character. And unfortunately, it cannot be, is gay. They're still trying to make us believe that she and Dane are going to be a thing. We have tall, dark, and broody with soul pain who did some flirty fighting with her last night. There's no chance in fucking hell, unless this book does a surprise polyamory. There's no chance for Dane. I'm not even slightly convinced. He can be as friendly and as sweet, and she can have as much of a crush on him as you want to. I don't believe for a millisecond that he's endgame. So she has found out who her opponent is going to be. It's been posted. And we already know that she has been collecting poisons, and in this chapter we find out that she's on breakfast duty, so golly gosh, I wonder what her scheme could be. Oh my gosh, and now she's like comparing her two boys, because Dane is like, hey, you know that guy Jack who tries to murder everyone he comes in contact with? You should stay away from him. And then she thinks about how last night, after her fight flirting with Zaden, he gave her the advice to throw daggers at the mean boy when he comes for her. And she's like, oh, what a contrast. One tells me to just stay away, the other tells me to fight. Ugh. And I'm just longing for death over here. So her poison is nearly white, nearly invisible. I don't know why we have two nearlies in a row. If there were three, then I would feel like it was intentional. Nearly white, nearly invisible, and nearly undetectable, or something like that. Then that's a rhythm. But just two in a row makes it sound like the author was just being lazy. But of course she sprinkles it over her opponent's scrambled eggs. What the fuck is this? So apparently they're in dragon class. Professor Kaori says something. His serious dark eyes slashing towards his nose as he studies the new recruits for a beat. What? I read that 4 times and I don't know what your dark eyes slashing towards your nose means. Excuse me? Did editors look at this? Again, I'm a developmental editor, and I would point out something like that. I would be like, hey, read this aloud, look at it, what does this mean? Like, what am I meant to picture? And then think about maybe whether you want to change it. I'm never going to demand you change anything, but I am going to be like, hey, look this over again. Do you want to change it? Also, conveniently, this teacher has the magic power to project images, so basically he is his own film projector as he's talking to them about the different breeds of dragons. Like, if you have that skill, you're meant to be a teacher, or maybe like work in maps or something. Although you could really get into the like sex work industry, because all you need is a filthy mind and you can project some real fun movies for people. So they're learning about a type of dragon called the red scorpion tail, and apparently these dragons like to be approached from the left or the front, but no explanation is given as to why. Is their vision worse on their right side? Why would the left? Is there some weird dragon tradition where it's rude to approach people from the right? Whatever. We're not going to explain anything, actually. We're just going to throw stuff at you that sounds cool and fantasy-like. Yeah, this breed of dragon likes to be approached from the left. Don't ask questions. There will be 100 dragons at their threshing, I think is what the dragon meeting ceremony is. And apparently that's 37 fewer than last year, so there were 137 dragons last year. There's more attacks happening, she heard in battle class, that we weren't privy to. So, but also, weirdly, fewer dragons are bonding with humans. And dragons need to bond with humans to defend their territory for some reason. Because dragons, I guess, can't use their magic without humans and vice versa, or something like that, I don't know. Maybe it'll be clearer once she has a dragon.
Get used to disappointment.
So the main character thinks that either they are getting weaker or the enemies are getting stronger. Both possibilities mean the cadets in this room are needed more than ever. Cool. Maybe we should change the rule where you can just murder each other. How about that? Did anybody think about that? No, of course not. It's a proud tradition that we have this stupid murder clause for our dragon cadets. Of course, Zaden has the rarest breed of dragon. What broody boy would be seen with anything but the rarest breed of dragon? And of course, she's the most vicious, the most deadly kind. Ooh, there's only one black dragon present this year, and I've got money that says our main character is going to get that one. All these fantasy names and their names for dragons are just a color and a weapon that their tail is shaped like. It's a black morning star tail. Oh yeah, our main character is definitely going to end up with this dragon. The black dragons are known for being the smartest and the most discerning. And the rarest. Oh my god, it basically has I'm the main character's dragon stamped on its forehead. Nobody else might as well go walk up to this dragon when they do their threshing. It's pointless. Oh, and the black dragon hasn't agreed to bond since his previous and only rider was killed during the uprising. Well then how come you said that there was going to be one black dragon here this year and you're talking about him, but now you're like you can't bond with him. Why is he here? Why did he come then? Why is he doing this? Are they required to if they don't have a rider anymore?
What are the rules?
And of course the main character's mother has the only other black dragon that is currently in service. So like, my god. All of the pieces are falling into place for this to be her dragon. Every single one. Don't try to hide it or anything. I mean like, there's foreshadowing and then there's this. What I would do if I was rewriting this scene is rather than hitting every single point that makes this black dragon seem like it's going to be the main character's dragon for sure. We would talk about multiple types of dragons in this scene, and then have the main character think about which one she would like. Preferably one that's not the one that she ends up with. So she picks a red dagger tail, because they're small. I don't know, I'm just making this up. There weren't any in this chapter so far anyway. Because they're small, they're nimble, and she's like, perfect dragon for me. I'll go for one of those. They're easy, maybe there's a lot of them, or something like that. Once again, tying it back to what the main character wants. Maybe she doesn't always get what she wants, but she wants something. And then when the day actually comes, something happens. Possibly she causes it to happen. Possibly she goes up to every red dragon and they all tell her no. Or however this works. And until she sees the black dragon in the distance and she's like, well, nobody's going over by him. I might as well give it a shot. Again, this would work better if she actually wanted to be a dragon rider in the first place. Now she's just here because her mother would not let her leave. It's so thin, it's so tenuous. But anyway, that's how I would redo this scene. Let us know about a bunch of different types of dragons, because that's kind of interesting. No specific dragons. Like, we're going into detail about this specific black dragon and how, like, cool and badass it is. Instead, let's talk about a bunch of dragons and then tell us one that our main character wants and she's going to try to go for. If this turns out to not be her dragon, I will eat several hats from my hat collection. But I feel very safe that I will not be having fabric between my teeth. The previous rider, signets are different for everybody, so like no dragon provides the same signet special secret power to the next rider. So like whatever rider rides the black dragon next will get a different power than its previous rider, but its previous rider had the power to absorb power from various sources, other dragons, other riders, and use it or redistribute it. What's power? Magic? Life force? Completely unclear. Just power. But apparently that guy didn't die in battle, he burned himself out because he tried to use his ability to resurrect a dead rider, and in this world there's no magic that can do resurrection. Although as soon as you say that, you know the main character's going to end up with that one by the end of the series. Yeah, we finished learning about the black dragon and then the class is just done. So I don't know how you could make it any more obvious, aside from the professor looking right at the main character and going, black dragons love people exactly like you. Oh, apparently, of course, oh my god. Just when I thought that the author couldn't make it more obvious that the black dragon is going to be her dragon, I thought we'd hit every single button, but the black dragon's previous rider died trying to resurrect the main character's dead brother. Okay, is this gonna have to be everyone praises the main character? It's not everyone praising her, but like a surprising number of people insist on doing it. Her teacher says, Brennan was a spectacular rider and a good man. Mira was shrewd and gifted in the seat when it comes to riding, but you're smarter than both of them. Would love to see some of this extreme intelligence on display. Like, I know we're supposed to think she's very smart for poisoning her opponent, but like, does that count as very smart or just like a little bit sneaky? She says, it's not often I get compared to my brother and sister and somehow come out on top. I have not seen you compared to your brother and sister at all. Like, we have been privy to. Compared to your mother, maybe, but not your brother and sister. So again, I would like to see her having been compared to her siblings and feeling like she's coming up short. So then when this professor praises her, she's like, huh, if you gotta have this professor praise her, I don't think this is necessary at all. This definitely reads like the author being like, hey everybody, my main character is really cool. The professor can see how cool she is. So now we are here at our fighting challenge where our main character is going to poison somebody, or has poisoned somebody. She's already poisoned him at breakfast. But of course, because we have to up the stakes, Dane is like, BT Dub, your opponent, Orin, is going to try to kill you. I mean, I thought that's kind of what everybody was trying to do, kill each other, but I'm going to be fine, I recite. Okay. I'm a little confused. Rhiannon wins her fight, and when she wins, she gets to take a dagger from her opponent and add it to her own collection. Except for I thought that the first years didn't have daggers. The only reason the main character has daggers is because her sister gave them to her special. And that was like kind of a big deal. And like let people know that she has help because she's wearing daggers when nobody else should be. But maybe we forgot. Okay. Is poisoning someone just allowed? Like, because, you know, Jack, the murderous boy, is taunting her. And I'm like, why doesn't she has access to everyone's breakfast, and she has access to poison. Is there a reason that you can't kill another cadet with poison? Just kill him. Poison his fucking eggs. She decides to take the advice of Broody Boy and throw daggers at the murderous guy. And that works. And of course, Dane, who was there to watch, is all like, what was that? I told you to steer clear. And I bet you any money that Zaden is like over there smiling all proudly. I nailed it. I don't even need to read this book. I think I could just tell you by guessing what happens in it. So the boy she poisoned, you know, starts to vomit in the middle of their match, and the professor declares that he yields without letting her kill the kid. I mean, rude. She should just be able to slit his throat. Of course, she's the main character and she would never do that. But, you know, I thought you were allowed to kill each other. And he's clearly a weak link. And she gets to take one of his knives. So then we time skip again. She wins the next match, again, thanks to poison. Different poison. She's not poisoning everybody the same. So that's, yeah, 5 weeks in a row she's winning due to her poison scheme. Here's the first thing that I genuinely think is clever that she's done. She knows that it's going to look suspicious if all her opponents are always sick. So she does poison some people that she's not going to be fighting, so it looks like there's a virus moving through that group, that wing, I guess, whatever their groups are called. That I will give her. That is actually clever. She's proud that she's won 5 matches without actually killing anyone. But is that something to be proud of in this particular school? Like, most people are probably looking at her thinking she's a weakling because of that. She let someone break her arm in the hopes that she would not be considered a weakling, but she won't kill? Suspicious. Oh dear. But her final opponent actually went to the healer before the match because the main character poisoned her too well. So she has to have a swapped-in opponent, and guess who it is? You might guess Jack, the murderous boy, but no. What's your second guess? Is it Zaden? You're right. And that ends the chapter. She's facing off with Zaden, who she did not poison. And we'll be on to chapter 9. Are they gonna flirt fight some more? I bet they will. I'll see you for the next chapter.
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Well, that's okay. I'll just tell you. Tell you the names of my patrons, that is. Patrons like July, Bird Anonymous, Sunny Shy, Nico, Saga, Sarah, Kat, 78 kilograms of shade, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Pantsing Pony, Haley, Sam, Kira, Kohikaro, Mooney, Maria, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, KJ, Lafone, Amanda, Celia, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, The Unraveled Legion, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah H. I'm so glad that these patrons have decided to reveal their identity by helping me out over on Patreon.
In this new version, you play the ghost of a dream of a memory of a cyborg warrior trying to find his dead wife inside a poem. The game's central feature, emotion booths. Stepping into any one of these booths will cause the player to actually feel that emotion. And these are just some of the hundreds of thousands of emotions you'll find in the final game.